It's carbon Klein. Ooh, two-tone silver with a glitter. Dura-Ace. Oh, carbon stay. This must be a Q Pro Carbon. Whoa. This is one awesome bike. And yes, it is in for a tune-up. Let's review what this bike, hidden histories he has to tell after this. Ooh. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe. Welcome back to another installment of This Old Bike. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy, and we're going to review this repair that I have came in to be serviced. What kind of service are we talking about? Oh, basically a basic tune. My standard tune, which is the lower level, which basically I true the wheels, just the hubs, derailleurs, brakes, and go through the drivetrain, make sure it's all safe to ride. But since this guy brought in a couple bikes for me to tune, I'm going to elevate that tune up to a drivetrain clean and inspect the chain, inspect the tires, do a little bit extra protection and cleaning of the frame, and give itself maybe a ceramic coating. This Klein, well, just begs to be polished. Oh yeah, it's just quite a beautiful thing. But either case, we're going to go dive into what mysteries we can find as a mechanic getting a bike and going through the process of taking it apart and the secrets that will tell you what kind of riding, where it was kind of ridden, if it was maintained, any kind of part swap outs. And Gary Klein, made some really awesome bikes. This is towards the end of his reign, before they stopped making Kleins or Trek, under the Trek umbrella in the late 2000s, probably 2007-ish. 5 to 7 is the range on this one. And before that, he started as an MIT back in the 80s, 70s, 80s. So the guy's been around a long time. He's still known very well today, as their bikes are still floating around. It's a culture that follows this brand. Any case, let's review and go through the tune-up process. Here we have it, another tune-up. Yeah, it's a beautiful day in January. I got the garage door open. Let some fresh air in so I don't chemically bake myself as I clean the drivetrain and that kind of deal. Woo, it's kind of loopy sometimes. In any case, just kidding. Pretty well ventilated in here. Q Pro Carbon. The carbon is mainly the seat stays. There's some confusion out there that some people think that Klein never made a full carbon. They did in their last 2 years. Last 2 years of production, they made the full carbon frame. I've worked on 2 of them in my local market here, and they're pretty nice. They both were not my size, or I still would have it. One was a super big one, and one was a little small for me. But in any case, this guy right here is a repair with Dura-Ace, and a customer came in and dropped off 2 bikes. The other one here is this specialized pitch, which I just did a video on as well. Let's do a quick overview on the bike. The bike itself is aluminum frame, carbon fork, and carbon chain stays, right? But it doesn't come with the actual OEM wheels. These are the Cerium Elites from Mavic. Mavic was known, or has been known, of making good wheel sets over the decades. Not sure where the status of the company is now. I don't think they're doing so hot or no longer around. I haven't seen very much of them, but their wheels that they did produce are really awesome. But this particular model, I have a set on my bike where it has some hairline cracks around the spoke nipples, which is something I'm going to be reviewing when I clean it in detail, the actual wheels, and true them up. But this did come with a Dura-Ace group, which is actually pretty much straight across standard. This guy does have a little bit of a stiff headset, so we're going to address that in a second. But go over the actual history of the bike. Thompson C-post. It probably had a Bontrager one, but that got elevated there. So the wheels and the C-post. Well, the wheels that came on this were the Bontrager, possibly the paired spoke. They either wanted to upgrade, or they had a problem with the wheels that you see hanging behind me, which a few of them didn't quite make the cut because they had hairline cracks and fractures around the rim, or the hubs failed, and so forth. They did improve those within the next iteration towards the end of the Bontrager paired spoke, but then they went back to regular radial lace. So kind of funny there. That's just kind of how the market goes, you know, like, ooh, we got this great idea. Oh, it's not so great. Oh, we're going to go back to, ooh, we got a new idea. Back to where it was before. In any case, you know the story and the drill. It's all about marketing. Got to come out with something new and flashy every year or every couple of years to kind of push the market, get people excited about the newer stuff, and pay a lot more money for it. But in any case, this particular bike in that early 2000s, mid 2000s, before the teens, who were looking at, this was probably a couple grand, probably a little more with full DA on it, about 24 to 3,000. This is before your $5,000 to $10,000 bikes are now the norm. Anyway, this was the top of the line, and the Kleins have a very unique ride in itself. Not too unique. It's more of on the aggressive spectrum, fast, quick handling, and very stiff. The granular tube process where Gary Klein developed when he was on MIT, he had a grant to mix aluminums to what he came up with, the granulate tube. Granulate aluminum, and he uses that process to draw it out to make multiple taperings. So it's not just butted or triple butted, it's like quadruple, 100 butted of the tubing when it's drawn out, and that actually gives you the ability to give it more flex, as much as aluminum will flex in one direction and make it stiffer the other direction to accelerate more energy into your drivetrain. A couple other takeaway points: it does have internal cable routing, which is not totally unique to him. There was a lot of companies that did that too, but the rear entry dropout where the wheel goes in directly into the back, and we'll show that when I take the wheels off, is more unique to the Klein, which actually put more energy in your drive, and those chances of that wheel slipping out, actually a great idea. But this one does not have a replaceable hanger. They did a year or two later, so I'm probably thinking this is more of a 2005-ish, because I remember seeing the newer ones that did have a replaceable hanger on there. So if that hanger goes, the frame is unfortunately toast. You can't repair aluminum. But in any case, this particular frame also has the painted on decals, where they first layer paint the color of the decals, like the Klein and on the Pro on there, and then they mask that off, paint it multiple colors, two-tone in this one, like white with silver with a flake, deep flake, and also then they pull the stencil off and do a monster clear coat. These paint jobs are really thick and really nice to work on when you're doing detailing on a frame, because you have a lot of material to work with. On the Le Mans, on the other hand, on the older steel ones, are like barely painted. It's very, very thin, so you can't really go too aggressive with any of those detailing corrections for the paint itself. But in any case, it did come over the carbon fork, his own Aeolus carbon, which is kind of like his own kind of coin, and also Klein on here. But this is actually a sticker. Yeah, those are actually stickers. A lot of the forks were painted. It does have a Klein sticker on the back, which is like your vinyl stickers back in the day where they usually. But the main frame has the painted, also a head tube badge, and itself is painted on there as well. Super cool. Yeah, a lot of different things, square tapering to cylinder, a lot of those kind of deals mountain bikes had to carry over to. He was probably about 50-50 as like mountain bike popularity. It has hardtails and so forth. He did come out with a couple different suspensions. One was like the Palomino, which was kind of mirroring the Mavic design. Then he came out with another one, which actually I have one hanging. It's closer to your standard suspension, closer to like the Trek and the Specialized pivoting and so forth. Now it's all 26ers. He never dived into the 27s and the 29s. He was out before that became a big thing. So if you do look at a Klein mountain bike, you're going to be stuck with a 26-inch wheel. Still fun, but a different kind of ride than you will get for the 27 and 29ers. Just going to say. In any case, both lines, mountain or road, had all those aluminum technologies built into them and really scaled in. Yeah, I drank the Kool-Aid quite a bit in the 90s because we were back in the Parker Bikes days, was a Klein dealer once we were acquisitioned by Trek, and we did hear all the pitches of how he did the aluminum and so forth. Fun fact is, prior to Klein acquisition in the 90s, Trek was bonding pretty much all of their frames, gluing together by lugs and casting. Well, Gary Klein taught Trek how to weld, and they welded from there. They try to produce majority, about 80 to 90% of the bikes in the United States until about 2003, 2004. They were having some hard times competing with overseas, Specialized, and some other brands, Giant. And we went over there and took a look at how their processes are, maybe bringing in a couple of cheaper carbons. Boom, 2007, 2008, trucks production from all the United States shifted to Taiwan in a heartbeat. You know why? Specialized is making better frames at the time in that facility, from the horse's mouth of one of the engineers. So before the market knew about this, those layering technologies, the carbon was being used for the Roubaix, Specializes, and so forth. The truck carbon OCLV was kind of like a little further back, and for them to ramp the technology to compete and be better, it was too big of a lift. Just part of, that's what's business, right? Unfortunately, they gave it a good go. Canada was another company that tried to make the majority of their bikes, or a lot of the bikes in the United States as well. It's just one of those things. And when you're talking about, it's not the whole bike, it's just the frame. Everything else is made overseas anyway. Componentry, wheels, forks, you need like all the little bits. There's hard pressed for manufacturing in the United States to produce the whole bike in the United States. Believe me, I tried to build up a full United States built bike in the 90s. It cost me a ton of money back then, and I couldn't quite get it all. I got it close, but not everything. Like the wheels, and I got that, and the stem, and so forth. The couple other bits, they were overseas. I just couldn't get around it. But anywho, that being said, let's start tearing this thing apart and see what stories it has to tell. Let's do actually first a review of what a service rider or a mechanic like me would see when you bring this bike into your shop. Pardon the interruption, there is more. More you say? Push the more button. Push it. Push it! I dare you to push it! Once you push that button, you get more details about the video you are watching, in addition to all the tools that I use in the shop, as well as suggestion for improving your ride. In addition to help me provide advocacy in the cycling community, also links to other social media accounts as well as my website to find the products I actually sell and other insights in the industry. Other videos linked below. Extend your cycling experience here on YouTube. And now back to your original programming. So, welcome to I Know a Guy Bikes, and thank you for dropping off your bike. I'm going to review it and take a look. Just kidding. Not a good voice. But basically, three things we want to look at as a bike mechanic or service rider for the norm overall. One is the frame and fork. Usually those are not bad, but we want to inspect and make sure we don't see anything that's glaringly obviously like a cracked frame or something like that. Second is going to be the wheels. By doing that, we just look at the rims quickly, make sure they're not going back and forth too much of damage or any of that nature. Inspect the tires, see if they're holding air, see if they don't have flat spots or any damage there. If they do, then we bring it up to like, oh, we might need a tube or tire or something like that. Checking the spokes, make sure none of them are broken. Make sure they both spin well, that kind of thing. Then the third thing is componentry. The shifting and the braking. So basically we double check the brakes, make sure there's enough meat on the pads, both front and rear, make sure the pivot, check the housing itself. This one has a funky routing housing up front, which I'm going to try to correct because it's binding up. That happened during transportation. When talking to the customer, apparently they disassembled and reassembled it to move it or whatever. And they didn't get the cabling quite right. I'm going to fix that so it's a little more fluid, it doesn't bind up, and doesn't cause any issues there. And slowly but not last, but componentry, the shifting. So we like to go through and double check the shifters, make sure they're clicking and going through all the gears, not any hesitation, as well inspecting the housing and the cables. And it does sound dry, that kind of thing, which is pretty typical, and it's dirty. You can kind of see the gunk on there, and we want to clean that all up. Ultrasonic cleaner will clean out all the parts and all that. So the shifting feels pretty good. It goes up and down. Then we do check the chain with a chain checker. And in this case, I put the chain checker in there. It goes all the way. So that means the chain needs to be replaced, which I already consulted with them. We're going to go with this chain here, a 10-speed. And the problem with this stretch of a chain, it might be, depending how it was ridden, if the cog's in the back, and this is the second owner, so the history of the bike, I would say, is pretty much unknown. And the cassette in the back, you don't know the wear. If you're a grinder, which just stays in 1 or 2 gears, you're going to wear out those 1 or 2 gears more when the chain stretches. If you're continuously shifting, you're distributing the load. So I don't know what the state of the cassette is, but I will know once I put a new chain on there and take it for a test ride and grind a lot of pressure on each one of those gears in the back. And if it skips and slides, it'll be like a knock, knock, knock. That means the cassette's been compromised and we need to replace that too. Typically, rule of thumb is 2 chains to 1 cassette. That really helps that out. If you want to prolong your drivetrain, the waxing process is something you might want to look into. By waxing the chain, the research is there's studies on it, not studies, well, studies and actual, gone through testing on wax chains on drivetrain. And what a wax chain does is lengthens the life of your cassette and your chain rings as well as your jockey pulleys and everything else. The wax chain is more fluid, has less wear, and it lengthens the life. Yes, it's a heavier lift, but you will save on the back end, saving cassettes and chain rings. And when you're talking about Dura-Ace chain rings, these are expensive, as well as the cassettes. But on your average chain rings and so forth, it may be 40 to 50 to 60 or $100 per chain ring up front. And cassettes, they vary obviously from, for the new ones, anywhere from like $30 to 100 to 150 bucks. All depends what level you want to get. But the chain itself, you can get an expensive chain. They're about 20 to 30 to 40 bucks. And then you can get it wax serviced or wax it yourself. Then that'll actually lengthen everything. Just want to do a sidebar on how to do prevention on drivetrains when they stretch out like so, and what you're looking into, the cost of those things. And also we're looking at the frame, make sure, again, it's safe. And cleaning this all up, I'll be, when I take it out, be inspecting the bottom bracket bearing. If I want to check that right now, I just roll the chain off while it's on the smallest cog and kind of get a feel for it. It feels smooth, but I won't know for sure until I take that whole crank off and check that bearing by hand. Also, the headset here has a little bit of binding, so I'm going to pop this headset apart and clean it up and see if one of the bearings have been compromised there as well. So there's the review of the tune-up we're going to be diving into. Time to dive into it. Pop that chain back on there. So we want to knock it down to the smallest cog that pulls the derailleur out of the way as much as possible. Pop the quick release on the brake here. Bloop. That opens up the brake itself. If you have a different kind of bike, like a V-brake style or so forth, they'll have open. If it's disc, you don't need to worry about that. So releasing the quick release here, that opens up the quick release so the wheel can drop out. But instead of dropping out forward, I want to show a close-up on this. This is a rear entry dropout, so this pulls backwards, and you roll the chain off like so. This, coming this direction, forces that energy into your drivetrain, which is kind of a cool feature. And also, it won't slide while you're riding at all. I mean, it's going to stay in position, like so. So we got the wheel off, going to take the cassette off, take the chain, pop the derailleurs. Watch me go. So while my parts are cooking, I'm gonna just to give it a good little cleaning and try to get a lot of this gunk off. Oh man, that's seriously caked on there. So I might have to do some serious coating and soaking to get this first layer of dirt off completely. And yeah, typically I like to spray the rag more so than dive into wiping onto the frame, but some of these areas are going to have to soak. And let's feel this bottom bracket. Not the best, but not the worst, so we'll take a look at that too. But yeah, like this caked on, this is chain slap right here, this black stuff. And sometimes you have to use something a little more aggressive to make that go away. It's on a plastic chainstay protector. So in that case, it'll come off at some point. But there's going to be a lot of elbow grease put into this frame just to get the initial dirt layer off. But once we get that off, I'll add that little bit of polish and ceramic coating, which will probably help. And as I'm doing this too, this is a good opportunity when you're cleaning the frame. You're not just cleaning, you're actually inspecting as well. So looking for any kind of weirdness, dings, cracks, damage, compromised pieces. I've already noticed there's like a little small ding on the opposite side here. Nothing that's going to prevent it from actually riding for safety, but it does there, and I will make a note of it for the customer and give these good brakes a little wipe down. And I like to file the pads down a little bit to kind of get any of the contaminants out of there from the brake surface, so you have a better contact pad to rim freshness basically from the bike itself. So I'm going to proceed to keep on cleaning this frame up, cooking the parts, clean those up, rinse them, lube them, get those all ready to go. We'll do a review of the parts and what I find after going through the frame. Like I promised, I pulled the headset apart, cleaned the bearing, and it seems smoother than it was. It definitely needed to be refreshed with some new grease. Cassette cleaned up pretty good. The derailleurs, actually not too bad, considering how caked up they were. I did the best I could without completely disassembling the chainrings, which would be included with my upper level tune, but with this one, time of the essence, I cleaned it up as best I could. But I did put a little extra into the wheels, clean these guys up, and put a nice little ceramic coating on the spokes, hubs, and rims to give that extra shine. So right now it's kind of dull, but looking at the frame, whew, this thing cleaned up really good. We got that triple layer of ceramic coating on this, and looks pretty awesome. Things to note though, we got a little bit of missing paint here. Well, that is from a tire being too big, probably a 28C or a larger diameter brand. What that was doing is the tire was going through here and rubbing that paint off when it got contaminants. It acts like sandpaper when you get like dirt on there. So that was a constraint, but looking at this inside here, it looked pretty good. And a couple little chips. There's one right here. I did clean off all that gunk. Looked pretty good there. And one note would be a little ding right here. Not terrible. Actually it's not going to be functional or cause any dysfunction of the actual ride. It's just not aesthetically perfect, but there's a couple chews. Also another note is back here, what causes this is the chain being dropped off, not adjusted correctly, and chewing up the chain. In addition to, the chain got dropped once or twice on the inner ring here, but the bearings are pretty decent. At some point they do need to be replaced. But look at that, painted decal. Awesome, can't wait to show this off in the sun. So let's review. Yeah, I put a little more than I probably should, or I'm getting paid for anyway, but that doesn't matter as the quality of the tune-up that I provide will speak volumes, right? Man, anyway, I love the Kleins anywho, so this gives me an opportunity to really, yeah, get to play with something that's used to be high-end and fun. Yeah, we're going to be putting a new chain. We'll see if that cassette is not been compromised by being a stretched chain, but the brakes look pretty good. Man, this frame is instantly becoming smooth as soon as I put this fiber cloth on it. Yeah, that, whew, nice coating. I can't wait to show this off in the sun. Yeah, I will back off these Allen bolts, even though they don't have cages on them. I just want to double check, make sure they're actually removable, and put a little grease on them, just a professional touch. And looking at these wheels, they were pretty true right out of the gate. They didn't even be cleaned up. Whatever lube was put on there, and it's probably not the owner now, it's probably the owner before, used probably one of those Monte high-end lubes, which acts like a plastic layer, so it takes a lot of heat and a lot of cleaning to get those to clean up. It's a nightmare mess. You can't do it in a normal cleaner or a tank, chemical tank, because it just smears. It doesn't clean off. So when you got something of that nature, it also sonic cleaner with the heat really cuts through a lot of that. I got through, at least the cassette pretty cleaned up, but anyhow, whew, man, ceramic coating makes the rim look like new. Holy cow! Next, fall in love with this stuff. Yeah, I used the ceramic ceramic slam from Lithium. So the process on this is I cleaned it with Purple Power diluted, got it really clean, had to touch it up with some higher concentration of I would use clean streak from White Lightning. It's like a brake cleaner basically, or a carb cleaner, and that got the hard stuff off and various parts of it. Then once I got all that wiped off, then I used the Hyper Clean all surface from Lithium to kind of really open up the paint, make sure all the contaminants, also in the rims as well after I cleaned them. Then I did a ceramic slam from Lithium on the rims, just did one coat on the rims and did 3 layers on the frame, especially got it good underneath where the spray and contaminants will really splash up. Be interesting to see how it really sheds all that rain and mud, splash, whatever you may run over, and hopefully makes it easier to wipe off clean or rinse off with a light pressure hose water. So man, look at that beautiful rim. Couldn't be happier. Anyhow, got most of the hard lift up. Oh, one interesting thing, checking out the front skewer, I took this off, and where did that other spring go? What was interesting, I want to make note, on front wheels, or both front and rear wheels, you'll have these skewer springs, right? Well, lo and behold, oh, here it is. This guy, well, number one, it had 2 on one side, and this guy was on backwards. You want the cones to go inwards. What that does is equalizes the hub, and I'll show you that here in a second. This was backwards, and you can see how it got boogered. This means that front wheel can't get in the dropout correctly. So it's going to be at a jar a little bit, which affects your braking, which affects the performance of the front wheel, which if this loosened up while you're riding, yeah, you may have gotten out of control a little. So I don't know why there was triple springs. So this one's been bent, it's compromised, that becomes trash. What I'm going to do here is take apart, if I can, the 2 springs. These, they like to get together. Or if I can't, I'm just going to have to pony up and put on some new springs. A pair of them. I think I got it. Wrong way, yeah. So now I have 2 springs out of a pair. Take the skewer, cone towards the inside, and I take A little bit of tri-flow. That makes the pivot a little more responsive. And I take the main skewer body, lightly coat it. Trick that we learned back in the 90s, prevent rust and all that jazz. Make sure my logoing is the right direction. And I push it through the hub, the cone portion inwards, like so. And then you tighten it down. So this is the left side of the bike because the skewer's on the left side, both front and rear. You see how that equalizes back and forth? What the idea is the springs. You can take those out. You don't have to have them. But it makes it a little bit easier to get that wheel in and out because it equalizes the spring, the skewers out evenly. So it drops into the fork blade a lot easier, like so. So you're not fighting that skewer. That's the whole concept. Then you have your lawyer tabs. You got to clean those up underneath. So there you go. Skewer 101, golden nugget, safety. You know, one of many things that as a pro mechanic, professional mechanic, we go through and we fix. A lot of times we do something quickly like that we just forget to convey that to the customer. Like, oh, by the way, your screw's all wacky. So, anywho, I'm going to throw this back together and do my due diligence for fine-tuning it and ready to roll. So, if you like videos like this, smash buttons below. You know the drill. Hit more for more information about this bike and other stuff that I do as advocacy. And thank you for hanging out with me in the garage. If it's beautiful in your neck of woods, please go for a ride. Get that virtual ponytail, a little airlift, and have some fun. Yeah, have some fun from the garage. Check out these awesome pictures after this.